All right. Hi there. We are now on our Learning Target 1.2 review. We're going to do this all as one. So make sure you have out your notes for Learning Target 1.2, and you really only need, you can use examples from the 1.2b because we're going to be using basically our examples from the back part of the page, examples 3, and then that's about it for these on our quiz. So just have those handy. We are using all where we have the X. So we're going to be plugging functions into each other, doing the operations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. The front page is really nice. It sums up what we need to do. As you recall, this is the function notation, and this is really what it tells us to do to add them together. With the subtraction, multiplication, and division, we just always need to make sure we use parentheses for that second thing, because it's always going to turn into distributive property. With the addition, it's a little bit easier. Okay, so make sure you have those over to the side looking at examples, and then we're going to do a few of these together, and then you're going to do some on your own. So looking at 18, this is telling us that it wants us to add the function f and g. So I'm going to use green for f, I'm going to use pink for g, and I'll go ahead and use purple for my h. You don't have to do it in colors. You know I like to color code things. Just makes it a little bit easier for me visually. So this first one, pretty straightforward because it's an addition problem. So I'm going to write my function f. So that is 3x squared plus 5x minus 10. And that's going to be added to this whole entire thing. But remember, with addition, we don't necessarily need to write parentheses, but I like to, because if you do it with all of them, then you get in the habit of making sure your operations are correct. So it wants us to add it to g, and it wants us to add it to the whole thing. So I'm going to put g in parentheses, 7x plus 8. If you notice right away, when we have plus, there's nothing in front of here. Since it's not a negative sign, there's no distributing. So it's like we can drop the parentheses away. We can just start combining like terms. So I'm going to combine like terms. So I'll do my bottom work here in orange when I combine them all. So my 3x squared can't go with anything else, so it's just dropped down 3x squared. Okay, I used that. You know I like to cross it off. You don't have to. So then I'm going to go to my x's. I have a positive 5x, and also here a positive 7x. So that's going to give me a positive 12x. And then the last part, I'll put my squigglies. I have a negative 10, and I can add that to a positive 8. Those are combining like terms, so then I get in your calculator, I get a negative 2. And that's it. It's simplified. We just did our operations. So this is my final answer. Okay, let's try 19, and then we're going to look at one that's kind of similar, and you'll try it on your own. But the first thing for 19, it wants us to take our function f and subtract g. So it's going to be very similar to this, except for, remember, with subtraction and other operations, the parentheses matter because we'll end up having some type of distributive property. So let me write my f, which is 3x squared plus 5x minus 10. And then remember, it's going to be, I'm subtracting. So I'm going to write that in the middle with a totally different color. It's subtracting the whole entire G, or whatever letter would be there. So I'm going to subtract that whole thing. This is where parentheses matter. I'm subtracting 7x plus 8. And then remember, with subtraction, that's like a negative. We distribute it to both of them, so we flip both signs. You can look at it as distributive property. You know I like to put the little 1 there just so you understand what's really happening is we're multiplying by -1. And then we rewrite our work. So we're not doing anything with the 3x squared plus 5x minus 10, but I am going to distribute. So negative 7x and then a minus 8. So if I distributed that -1 throughout, that's what happens. All right, so my next step, is combining like terms. So I'm going to take this 3x squared, can't go with anything else, cross it out, and then again, this goes here, 5x and negative 7x, so that's different. I get a negative 2, oops, sorry about that, negative 2x, because 5 plus negative 7, or 5 minus 7, and then the last part, I have a negative 10 plus a negative 8, which gives me negative 18 or minus 18. So this is my final answer when I subtract them. All right, I want you to try 20 on your own. It's similar because we have to make sure we are putting the second function in parentheses and that we use the distributive property to flip the signs. So I want you to go ahead and set those up and then solve it and compare your answer. Okay, that one probably took a little longer, but we have negative 2x to the third, and remember we put these in order from the exponents, plus 4x to the second, and you could have minus x or minus 1x, plus 8. So just looking through that, if you didn't get the correct answer, check the work. So we had that minus sign in the middle, so I had to distribute. So -1 times a positive 2x to the third, that gave me right here that negative 2x to the third. And then negative times a negative 4x, that gave me a positive 4x. And then negative times the positive 8 gave me a negative 8. And then just the combining like terms. All right, so let's look at 21. These examples are just a little bit different. This is when we have the multiplication. So we're looking at just multiplying the function h of x by 2. So it's distributive property essentially. So h, this whole function, we have to take the 2 on the outside and then multiply the whole entire function by that 2. 2x to the third minus 4x to the second plus 8x. So we're going to go through. So we've already done distributive property. So this should be pretty simple. I want you to go through using distributive property and simplify this for me. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video, finish this, and then compare your answer with mine. Okay, so you should have got 4x to the third. 2 times 2 is 4. And then 2 times negative 4, negative 8 to the second. And then 2 times the positive 8 plus 16x. Okay, so now this is a different one. We are going to do negative 5. Again, it's like distributive property times our f of x. So this negative 5 is on the outside. And then we're multiplying that whole function. 3x to the second plus 5x minus 10. We have to multiply everything by that negative 5. So again, we will be doing the distributive property, and be very careful when you distribute. I'll circle for you. The signs go with the numbers, the sign in front. This one is obviously positive. There's no sign in front. But then we've got a positive and a negative. So be careful in that. So I want you to go ahead and give the distributive property, simplify, and then check your answer against mine. Okay, you should have had negative 15x, and then that's a negative times a positive, so minus 25x, and then you would have had that negative times a negative, so plus 50. Okay, and then I want you to go ahead and try 23 all on your own. It's just like 21 that we did. So you're going to set it up yourself. Okay, so setting it up, and then your final answer, 56x plus 64. All right, so now we're putting all this together. So hopefully you can do some of these on your, you can do these on your own. But I'm going to just verbally walk you through some of them so you can set them up. But remember, now we're combining like the first three with these here. We're going to have a few operations, more than one in there. This is saying we're going to take g of x just by itself, and then we're going to subtract it from this negative, it's going to be a -3 times this f of x. So it becomes a distributive property 1. So I'll show you how we would normally set this up. Hopefully you remember and you're looking at the examples that are just like this on our paper. This would be on the back of our notes sheet, our checkpoints, 5 and 6 that we did together, and also under example 3, we had very similar ones for A and B. I'm just looking at the back of our note sheet. Very, very similar. So have that out and use that as a reference. But I'm going to walk you through just setting it up first, and then you'll do it the rest on your own. So this g of x is just, we write g of x, which is up here 7x plus 8. And then this is where we're going to get, we have to do minus the 3 times f of x. So what happens is we have this minus 3 times that whole entire thing, which is up here, our f of x. So 3x squared plus 5x minus 10. So it's just a little bit different from regular subtraction. They just put, you have to also multiply out front. So we already know how to do this. We are going to take this negative and distribute it throughout. We know the signs in front of the numbers count, right? So that's positive, and then that's a -10. So we'll keep this here, but then we'll distribute and then rewrite it, and then combine the like terms and simplify. So I want you to pause the video, give this one a go on your own, and see what you get. Okay, so hopefully you got the correct answer. Remember, we write them in order. So this -9x squared I put first, and then combining the two, minus 8x or -8x, and then adding the 2 plus 38. Just checking through my distributive property. If you got this wrong, make sure you had -3 times 3, which is -9x squared. -3 times a positive 5. That gave me a -15x. And then a -3 times the -10. That's how I got the positive 30. So hopefully you got this correct, and if not, you can see where the mistake is and fix your work. All right, let's try the last one. So the first thing we're just going to write, it's just one of the functions plus another function. We know that part's pretty easy. You can just combine like terms right away. And then this is going to be like this one. We're going to have a -5 distributed, and we're going to times that by our f of x. So I want you to just go ahead and try to set up the problem without solving first, and then compare it to mine. So let's do that first. You try to set this up, plug those in, and see what you get. So pause it and give that part a try. Okay, so when you set it up, this is my h of x, and then the plus sign, this is my g of x, and then I have that -5 times my f of x, so that is my f of x. So what we would do first, you can, there's a couple ways to do it, but I would first just simplify everything before combining like terms. So I would tackle this part first, this -5 times the 3x squared times the 5x squared, and then times the -10. So you have to be careful, the sign in front matters. So go ahead, I want you to give that a try and then rewrite what we would have. So this stays the same. And then I want you just to distribute and see what you come up with. Okay, so as you can see, I just rewrote my first two things, but you should have had that negative 15x squared minus 25x, because you have a negative times a positive, and then a negative times a negative, so plus 50. So now what we can do is start combining the like terms. So I want you to finish this problem on your own. Remember, put them in order from x to the third, x to the second, x, and then just the numbers. But go ahead and pause it and then combine the like terms and see if your answer matches mine. All right, so as you can see, I used a lot of different colors to show. So the 2x to the third couldn't go with anything else, so I dropped that down. I had my negative 4x squared, and I also had over here a negative 15x squared. Remember, the sign in front of the number needs to go with it. So I have a negative 4 plus a negative 15. That gave me my negative 19x squared. Next, I had just my x's, so 8 plus 7. Oh, and then I have a minus 25. So 8 plus 7 minus 25, that would give me negative 10x, or minus 10x. And then the last part, my numbers, I had a positive 8 and a positive 50, so plus 58. So that is learning target 1.2.